Okay, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to everyone. We are pleased to have you with us for our webinar today. As we have participants from Europe and Asia, of course we welcome you all. So the subject today is we will talk about the new EN ISO11133. This is a new standard which had been updated and released in May this year. So it is a brand new update, and the goal, objective of the webinar today is we hope that you will better understand after the webinar that the EN ISO11133 is an important quality guideline for the preparation and performance of culture media for microbiology testing. And of course we hope that you will better understand, of course, the content of the new ISO version. So let us introduce ourselves. My name is Andreas Bubert. I work for Merck Millipore as Senior Product Manager since 15 years. I had different positions in R&D, Product Management and Marketing, and I'm the moderator today. So with me today, I'm pleased to introduce also Barbara Gerten, who works also for Merck Millipore as an application scientist. Barbara is a German delegate for the EN ISO11133 working group, and Barbara is also a member of several other ISO groups. And Barbara will give the presentation today about the new EN ISO11133. So from the timeline today, we would like to start first with 4 general polling questions, so that we get a better understanding about our audience, about you today. So this will take about 1 or 2 minutes only. And then we will continue with Barbara's presentation, which will take about 35 minutes. The presentation, when the presentation is finished, it is then followed by a Q&A session, where you have the chance and the opportunity to address questions to Barbara. And Barbara will take the time to answer as many questions as the time permits before the end of our webinar. So let's start with before we come to the presentation, before we start, let's get familiar with the functionalities of the platform. So when you want to address the questions, we have a so-called question box, where you can, which you find at the bottom of the webinar window. So feel free to use that box at any time throughout the webinar when you wish to send us a question. It's possible also during the webinar. We will answer some questions only in text format, but you can review those answers on the Q&A tab just above the slide area. You will find this just above the slide area. Okay, so before we start with the presentation, I have 4 polling questions, and I will read the questions, and I'm asking you to tick your answers. So the first polling question is, so what is your industry? From which industry are you coming from? Please tick food, beverage, water, or pharma. Next question. In which kind of laboratory do you work? Is it a company lab, or a contract lab, or a university lab, or a governmental lab? Next question. Please also select your job area. Are you in production, or in quality assurance, or in quality control, or in regulatory compliance, or in research and development? Next question. And last question, have you already been following ISO 11133 in the past? Please tick yes or no. So these are the polling questions. And now it's time to hand over to Barbara to begin with the presentation. Barbara?
Thank you very much, Andreas, for the friendly introduction. Dear audience, welcome to the presentation for today, the new EN ISO 11133 or 11133 as we said, quality assured culture media for food and water testing to enhance consumer safety. First, we want to give an introduction and background of the revised EN ISO 11133 from this year. It was worked out by two ISO working groups. One is the ISO TC34 Food Products Subcommittee 9 Microbiology and ISO TC Technical Committee 147 Water Quality Subcommittee 4 Microbiological Methods. It was the first time that these both formed a joint working group, JWG, for writing and revision of EN ISO 11133 as the first joint standard for food and water microbiology. The convener of this joint working group is Melody Greenwood from UK and from water industry. From food industry, and the co-convener is Philippe Rosselin from France, from water committees. The members coming from around the world, from 17 countries all over. The new title of the revised EN ISO 11133 from this year is Microbiology of Food, Animal Feed and Water. Preparation, production, storage and performance testing of culture media. The revision has just been published at this year and 14th May by ISO as a full EN ISO standard. Just some days before, a corrected version was published at 1st November by ISO with implementation of editorial corrections. The revised standard is available at the ISO.org website, but also in your national standardization bodies around the world. ISO is the International Organization for Standardization. It is an independent, non-governmental membership organization. It is made up of 165 member countries who are the national standard bodies around the world with a central secretariat in Geneva, Switzerland. Here you see the first page of the revised and just corrected version of the 11133. The corrected version is indicated on this first page. Now I would like to give you content of the revised EN ISO 11133 from this year. It is a very heavy standard and we can give only some topics in the short time. It has more than 106 pages. And during the revision, the standard has been completely restructured to clarify procedures and to draw clear lines between the responsibilities of the laboratories and the manufacturers of culture media regarding media preparation, production, storage and performance testing. This first edition of the full EN ISO 11133 replaces the former published technical specifications of the same standards, which were in two parts published, part 1 from 2009 and part 2 from 2003 with an amendment from 2011. As a full EN ISO, European standard and international standard, it is now a mandatory standard for all accredited laboratories that perform microbiological testing of food, animal feed or water using culture media. The main chapters of the revised standards are, beginning with the scope. The standard covers all kinds of media for microbiological analysis of animal feed and samples from the food or feed production environment, and as well as all kinds of water. And to whom does the standard applying? It applies to producers on one hand to manufacturers producing and or distributing culture media in ready-to-use form or as dehydrated media, and on the other hand on microbiological laboratories preparing culture media for their own use. The standard gives a wide chapter on general terms and definitions. These general terms and definitions include quality control, batch or lot of a culture media, as well as the terminology of performance testing. It defines what is a target and non-target microorganism. It defines productivity, selectivity. And it has parts on the terminology of culture media by composition, by usage, by preparation of the method, by preparation method. And it has a wide terminology for the test microorganisms. What is the reference strain, working culture, reference material. In the next chapter, quality assurance management, it starts with the documentation. What documentation needs from manufacturer or producer? Amongst other documentation, mains are quality control certificate showing test organisms used and results of performance testing with criteria of acceptance. And on the user side, the delivery acceptance of products, the identification of the product, integrity of packaging, expiry date of the product, the documentation supplied, the number of units received, and to record the date of receipt. A big part is the laboratory preparation of the media in the standard. To point out only some, water is one of the biggest. Water for the preparation of culture media is very important. It is given by the standard to use purified water, for example, distilled, demineralized, deionized, or water produced by reverse osmosis. The conductivity is specified in the standard to use water which shall be a conductivity below or equal 25 microsiemens per centimeter. And very important, the microbial contamination should not exceed 1000 CFU per milliliter, preferable below 100 CFU per milliliter. CFU is colony forming units. This microbial contamination should be regularly monitored. For example, according to ISO 11222, water quality, enumeration of culturable microorganisms, colony count by inoculation in a nutrient agar culture medium. Another important topic is the measurement and adjustment of pH. For measuring the pH, using a pH meter is mentioned by the standard. And it's also mentioned that for commercially manufactured dehydrated media, if good quality distilled or deionized water is used, pH adjustment before to autoclaving should not be necessary. Very important for the users is storage and shelf life of prepared media. For commercially supplied media, follow the manufacturer's instructions. For laboratory prepared media, a general information is given to store the media protected from light and refrigerated. For plates, generally it is given to store them 2 to 4 weeks at 5 ± 3 degrees, and sealed bottles and tubes 3 to 6 months at 5 ± 3 degrees. Unless otherwise specified in specific standards, all results of the laboratory shelf life evaluation indicate a longer shelf life. Also, the information is giving how to conduct a shelf life evaluation. The expiry date for stored media should be established by checking the media after defined storage times for their physical, chemical and microbiological performance. A lot of information are given in the standards for the preparation of use. For example, for the melting of agar containing culture media. Agar containing culture media should be prepared in a boiling water bath or steam flow autoclave to melt. Cool down then the medium before pouring, and the holding time is very important, should be not higher than 4 hours. Media for poured plate methods that are added to the sample itself, like water sample, should be tempered to 44 to 47 degrees. For preparation of solid media in Petri dishes, the pouring volume is given by 18 to 20 milliliters in a Petri dish for medium thickness more than 3 millimeters. More medium may be required for longer incubation, longer than 72 hours, or higher incubation temperature, more than 40 degrees, to prevent for dryness. The preparation of plated media for the inoculum should include the drying the plates shortly before the use. For example, until the droplets have disappeared from the surface of the medium.
Okay, this is just Andreas. I would just like to remind you that you can submit questions at any time during the presentation. So when you have a question, please feel free to type your question in the box in the question tab. So Barbara, please continue.
Thank you very much. So, for the quality control, the microbiological quality control, the selection of the test organisms is given. For the selection of the test microorganisms for each medium, they may include robust positive strains with typical characteristics of the target organisms, weakly positive strains, negative strains not showing expected characteristics in the target organisms, and partly or completely inhibited strains. The standards give in two big Annex E and F, the test microorganisms to be used in specified food microbiology, ISO standards, and in the Annex F, in the water microbiology, ISO standards. What is very new that now in this ISO standard, but also in all following ISO standards, the test strain numbers are given as the WDCM test strain numbers. They are given by the catalog of a universal strain identifier compiled with the World Data Center of Microorganisms, WDCM. This catalog contains details of the reference strain represented by each WDCM number and contact details for the culture collections. These WDCM numbers are replacing individual numbers of specific culture collections. For the preservation, maintenance and preparation of test organisms, detailed instructions are given. For example, for the laboratory prepared reference stocks, the number of transfers should be documented to prevent excessive subculturing that increases the risk of phenotypic alteration. But no restriction of the numbers are given in this standard. Examples are given for preparation for stock cultures, working cultures and suspensions, inocula. It is given by an annex in the standard Annex B, flowcharts of maintenance and preparation with detailed information on all steps, from receiving the reference strains to the preparation of the inoculum for the test. Very important for the daily use in quality control, how high should be the inoculum level and incubation. The inoculum level for productivity testing for the quantitative testing is given as well as the inoculum level for practical test, productivity testing, qualitative testing, and the inoculum level for selectivity and for specificity testing. For example, the inoculum level for productivity testing for quantitative testing, a level around of 100 CFU is necessary to achieve sufficient precision. This may necessitate the use of more than one plate replicate. It is cited, given in the standard, that a practicable range of 80 to 120 CFU per plate with a minimum number of 50 CFU per plate should be used. For filters, which may have a smaller diameter, the same number of the CFU, the colony forming units, are needed using one or maybe more filters, 1 or 2 or 3 filters. For the incubation time, the shortest permissible incubation time in the ISO standard should be used for the target microorganisms, while the longest permissible incubation time should be used when determining selectivity. This is very fresh in the standard, and it is nearly like the definition for incubation in quality control of media given by the pharmacopoeia. For the quality control and performance testing of the culture media, the physical and chemical quality control is given for testing the fill volume or thickness, appearance, color and homogeneity, gel consistency, moisture content, for example, and also as well as the pH value. Microbial contamination has to be tested also and should be absent. An appropriate quantity, depending on size of the batch, shall be tested by incubation under appropriate conditions. No special conditions are mentioned here in this standard. It should be the appropriate conditions as for the use in practice. At least one plate or tube for small batches below 100 units should be tested. And acceptance criteria shall be established and justified for each medium by the laboratory or manufacturer. For the microbiological quality control itself, examples are given in the standard of quantitative and qualitative testing methods. For solid and liquid media are described. When culture media are intended for quantitative purposes, quantitative testing methods shall be performed. And this is very important and new in the standard. It was not in the technical specifications mentioned so precise as here. When a new medium or new manufacturer is being evaluated, quantitative testing methods are recommended to provide additional information to support the change. And what is very important also, that solid media used with membranes have to be tested in combinations with membrane filters. See a special ISO 7704 evaluation of membrane filters, which is also under revision. The testing frequency, a very important point for practical usage, shall be justified by the end user, taking into account the extent of preparation in the end user's laboratory and the level of quality assurance in place, for sure. For ready-to-use media and reagents, it is mentioned in the standard that if the manufacturer is approved according to ISO 9001, the user might not need to carry out extensive testing on such media, but should ensure that storage conditions are maintained. The user shall ensure that manufacturers of commercially available ready-to-use media have a quality program in place for this range of product for the culture media. The user shall also check the documentary evidence to ensure that the manufacturer's acceptance criteria for performance testing satisfy their own internal requirements. For example, for following these EN ISO 11133 from 2014. Nevertheless, periodic checks shall be carried out in order to demonstrate that the quality of media has been maintained during the transport. Checks shall also be performed following storage and further handling in the user's laboratory, for example, melting of solid media. Also for this, the frequency shall be justified. For the methods of performance testing of the solid culture media, for the productivity, this shall reach a defined minimum limit. The productivity ratio is determined by the total count of colonies obtained or in or on the culture medium under test, for example, colony count on plates, divided by the total count of colonies obtained on or in the defined reference culture medium obtained from one or more plates, and shall be around 100 CFU colony-forming units. For the quantitative methods for solid culture media, a quantified bacterial suspension should be used or has to be used. The recovery from the new batch of culture medium will be compared to the recovery from a non-selective culture medium, the reference medium. It could be used surface or poured plate techniques, so as well as in the normal usage of the medium, in the routine. For the methods for qualitative test, the qualitative streaking method is described. For productivity and specificity, the use of a plate of a test medium and streak out each test microorganisms in a way to obtain discrete colonies, single colonies. For selectivity, use one plate of test medium and streak out each test microorganism as a single straight line. So that means for selectivity you could use more than one microorganism on one plate. Results have to interpretate it corresponding 0 to no growth, 1 to weak growth, either reduction in amount of growth or colony size, and 2 corresponding to good growth. The specificity of the culture medium is given by essential indicative physiological characteristics to differentiate the related organisms. For example, by specific biochemical responses, so for bad Parker agar, the egg yolk clearing halos. Methods for the performance testing of liquid culture media are given as well. For qualitative testing, for the selective liquid media, a mixture of target and non-target microorganism is used. This mixture is inoculated in the same tube, and in parallel a second tube is used only for the non-target microorganisms. After incubation, reloop one loopful from the tube with the mixed culture and one loopful from the loop of the target microorganism, and streak out each on the specific medium. From the mixture culture on XLD agar, for example, as a selective medium, and from the tube from the non-target microorganisms on a non-selective medium on triptych soy agar. The reason behind is that with the mixed culture, the real situation in a food, for example, where not only the target microorganism is present, should be quality controlled and strict then to the specific medium. But on the other hand, the selectivity has to be tested and strict on a non-selective medium to see the amount of inhibition. After incubation, the solid media, the results are calculated and interpreted. Productivity of the selective liquid test broth is satisfactory if at least 10 colony-forming units of the target microorganisms are obtained on the specific medium, in our example, for example, the XLD agar. The selectivity of the liquid test broth is satisfactory if no growth of non-target microorganism occurs on the non-selective plate, in our example, the triptych soy agar. All this is described in big annexes E and F. For example, here you have the table E for the food media. In the first part of this table you see the specifications for agar listeria according Ottaviani and Agosti. In our example, the specific microorganism is Listeria monocytogenes, which is also tested for productivity. For selectivity, E. coli, Escherichia coli and Enterococcus fecalis is tested, and for specificity, Listeria innocua is tested. You will see here also the numbers given only by the numbers of WDCM. And the reference medium for productivity testing is here the triptych soy agar. The method of control is for productivity quantitative if this medium is used for quantitative testing. Selectivity and specificity can be used method of control, the qualitative method. Also the criteria and the characteristic reaction for this medium is given. In this kind, all media from ISO standards are described here in this annex in Table E for the food microbiology and Table F for the water microbiology. Also for the selective enrichment media, here we have an example in the part below for Fraser Boss. Fraser Boss, as you see it in the control strains in the part of the middle, is tested by a mixture of Listeria monocytogenes mixed with Escherichia coli and Enterococcus faecalis. And the selectivity is then tested only by Escherichia coli and Enterococcus faecalis single. We have also tested here in Merck Darmstadt the results of 5 subsequent batches from, for example, in this case, selective enrichment medium, the Fraser Boss, with a mixture of Listeria monocytogenes, all the strains given by the Annex. Mixture in this case is Listeria monocytogenes, Escherichia coli and Enterococcus faecalis. After subculturing on the solid media, more than 10 colonies for all the batches appeared on the agar Listeria according to Ottaviani and Agosti, with blue-green colonies with opaque halo. For the non-selective Salmonella pre-enrichment medium for buffered peptone water, we have the target strains of Salmonella typhimurium and Salmonella enteritidis, and all 5 batches reached good growth with a turbidity of 2. Here at Merck, we also investigated 5 batches for a non-selective medium, plate count agar, and a selective medium for enumeration of lactobacilli, the MAS agar. On the left hand, you see the results for MAS agar, 5 batches tested on 3 microorganisms, Lactobacilli, Lactococcus and Pediococcus. All these 5 batches reached the 70% of recovery rate compared to the non-selective medium TSA. And the same for plate count agar. Plate count agar was tested here with 4 different microorganism test strains, 2 from Escherichia coli, 1 from Bacillus subtilis, and 1 from Staphylococcus aureus. Plate count agar is tested to be tested again, compared against the previous validated batch, plate count agar itself, and has to reach also 70% of recovery rate. All these data you find on the defined Merck Millipore quality control certificate for each batch, now in accordance with the new EN ISO 11133 from 2014, with the detailed specifications for every medium, as well as the detailed batch numbers for every medium, the batch results for every medium for physical, chemical, as well for microbiology quality control.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barbara, for giving us valuable insights into this important topic, and also as information for our audience. Barbara's presentation is also available on demand on our website, and Barbara has also written a white paper that is also available for download on our website. So we will now address questions which are submitted by our participants. So I hope, and I see there are already questions. Remember, you can still submit questions to Barbara using the box on the question tab. And but nevertheless, if you have any questions about this ISO standard at a later time point, you can also use the Ask the Expert button on our website under www.merckmillipore.com/regulatory-expertise. So now we are starting with the first question. Yeah, the question to Barbara is the new EN ISO 11133 really mandatory for food and water labs? The previous version was only voluntarily.
Yes, thank you very much, Andreas, for this question. And the audience, for all your questions you have sent, we will now answer some of these. The new EN ISO 11133 has been published as a full EN ISO standard. The previous one was only a technical specification. Especially accredited labs have to follow these EN ISO standards if available, because these represent the current state of science.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. The next question to you is, when will the new EN ISO 11133 become mandatory in various countries or in various parts of the world?
Yes, thank you very much. That's not so easy to answer, but we can say that the new EN ISO 11133 from this year is available from the ISO website and from the ISO web shop. It can be used immediately. The implementation in the various areas of the world depends on local bodies. In European Union, for example, it has to be implemented in every country because it is an EN ISO standard. And we know that it has been already published as a Swiss SN, British BS, Austrian ÖNORM, Spanish UNE, and Russian GOST standard. As a German standard DIN and the French standard AFNOR, it will be published by December 2014, as well as I know.
Mm-hmm. So the next question is also an interesting one. What level of QC testing needs the labs to do if they buy ready-to-use media?
It is mentioned in the standard that the lab can reduce the level of own incoming control. If it has been assured that the quality control at the supplier's lab meets the requirements of the lab, respective those of the EN ISO 11133 from this year. Nevertheless, it is clearly mentioned in the standard that periodic checks shall be carried out in order to demonstrate that the quality of media has been maintained during transport. So it may be then also by the division of the lab and the lab's quality assurance, how many and how deep the frequency is of the ready-to-use media bought. But it depends a lot what is done on quality control on this ready-to-use media before at the supplier's level.
Okay, thank you. The next question is a very practical one. How can I recognize that the media I have purchased are in accordance with the new ISO standard?
Yeah, the first is that the quality control specifications given by the supplier certificate have to meet the specifications of the new ISO 11133 from this year. This can be checked easily also if it is mentioned on the certificate itself. So maybe it is mentioned then ISO 11133 is indicated on the quality control to the standard, on the certificate itself. But nevertheless, it is also mentioned in the standard that the specific specifications, the detailed specifications, are mandatory to be checked by the lab if these meet the specifications as given in the standard.
A good point.
So don't believe only on the sentence. It's the message what is not written in the standard between the lines.
Very good. Next question.
So it was mentioned that the standard is now published by ISO in a corrected version by 1st of November. I can say that I saw this corrected version of ISO. It is only editorial comments, editorial corrections, mainly by the tables. So it's no technical corrections, it's only editorial corrections.
Next question. Can I use more than 5 passages for microbial strain? ATCC recommend not more than 5.
We long discussed in our ISO group this question, and we know that 5 passages are given in the pharmacopoeia. The ISO 11133 is not mentioned these 5 passages, but the frequency of the passage should be documented by the lab itself.
Okay, next question. What is an acceptable frequency of the monitoring of the microbial load of the water?
Yes, from this question, thank you very much. This question is targeted to the water which is used for preparing the culture media. So the microbial load of this water has to be tested by regulatory checks. So no frequency is given by the ISO 11133 from 2014. So the frequency can and has to be defined by the lab itself.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What is the reference media?
The reference media is mostly tryptic soy agar with the abbreviation TSA. The reference media may be different for specific microorganisms like Legionella. In this case, the reference media will be the Legionella specific medium without antibiotics. For every test in the Annex E and F, the reference media needed are mentioned and given there.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What if we test the media that is not in the annex? We have to follow this standard?
First of all, you have to know that all media will be in the future, the quality specification, the test strains and incubation and reference medium will be not mentioned in the standard 11133. It will be mentioned in the specific standards. For example, in the specific standard for Salmonella or on the water standard, in specific standard for testing on coliforms and E. coli. So you please don't forget then to look in the specific standards. It is planned from ISO that in the future every quality control specification will be in the specific standards, not in 11133. 11133 only describes the methods and all around the preparation and so on. So if you have no specification in your specific standard and not in 11133, you are free to follow, and there is an annex in 11133 which describes how you can prepare your own quality specification. It is the last annex in the standard.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara. The next question. Can I validate to store VRBL/VRBG medium if standard recommends to prepare and use in the same day?
In this case, you have to do the quality control first in parallel, but you can also validate it by your own lab. It is mentioned in the standard that a longer storage than the storage given in the specific standard can be used if it is validated by the lab itself.
Okay, next question. Is it planned to integrate this EN ISO into EU law at some point?
Yeah, thank you very much for this interesting question. It is, as far as I know, not planned because it is really a standard which describes the methods how to quality control. But you never know. I heard nothing from the ISO working groups or from the ISO standardization bodies. We are close in liaison with the EU reference labs and so on, but you never know. So I can say it's not planned in the moment.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Next question. Is this guideline for pharma and medical devices?
Thank you very much. It is a guideline for all culture media, for food microbiology and for water microbiology. It describes in some parts more detailed the culture media preparation and quality control than some pharmacopoeias, especially than USP chapter on best microbial practice. So it is not a direct guideline for pharma sector and medical device, but it may help for some questions if you are writing your own standard operation procedures, it may help also if you can citate then an ISO standard.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Are you ready for the next question?
Yes?
Okay, very good.
Sure. Thanks for all the questions to the audience. Really, we have to say, it's really nice, really
How
good.
many reference, this is the next question, how many reference strains laboratory must be used for quality control in the lab? Do we need to use all mentioned microorganisms?
Yeah, it is a very important practical question for the lab. In the Annex E and Annex F for the lab use, there is mentioned in most cases for productivity only one strains, in some cases more than one strains. The strains which have to be used by the lab are indicated by a small b in all the tables. We really tried from the working group to download the workload for the usage of the strains by users lab.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe I can add, the whole list, it is then to be used by the manufacturer of the organisms.
Very good. So next question. The shortest and longest incubation temperature are to be followed as per pharmacopoeia? If yes, is it USP?
The longest and shortest incubation temperature came in the last, really last comments implementation in this ISO standard, and it follows really the recommendation or the specifications given in pharmacopoeia. For every medium, culture medium, in ISO 11133, you have a short and the longest incubation temperature given by the tables in Annex E and Annex S. And so in some cases it may be the same like pharmacopoeia, but in all cases it has to be the incubation temperature indicated by for the specific medium in the tables.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Next question. What are the responsibilities for the manufacture of culture media?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. The responsibility of the manufacture of culture media are really driven by the customer and lab needs, we have to say. So the manufacturer, if it is a manufacturer who is going really on the needs of the users, will follow ISO 11133 point by point and using all test strains. And then the indication according to 11133 is correct. Maybe other manufacturers will be not true. There is no law what is the responsibilities of the manufacturer of culture media. But I'm sure that you as the customers will drive this process.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Next question. What checks should be carried out by the suppliers and which by the laboratories? For both culture media ready to use and for dehydrated culture media, the preparation of which is made up by laboratories.
So we have clearly to distinguish between the ready-to-use culture media, ready for the usage in the lab. There is the quality control done before, really followed the ISO 11133. The own quality control can reduce, respecting the transportation. But if the culture medium is prepared from dehydrated powder or compactate granules by autoclaving, then more quality control has to be done by the lab itself. The frequency and depth of this quality control has to be defined by the lab itself, and it depends also in some cases on the accreditation.
Okay, next question. It's a long question,
but
I think the answer, yeah, it's possible. The question is on page 8, under section 4.22. Once the dehydrated powder is opened, it is stated that a maximum storage time must be indicated. We have, as a general rule for dehydrated powders, a maximum storage time of 6 months. Is this acceptable? The maximum storage would vary for different kinds of media, such as hygroscopic media, e.g. MCP, Clostridium agar. Is this right?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Thank you very much, first of all, for this question. It's really a practical question for the lab. We're not giving any storage times for open packages in the standard because it depends a lot on the formulation and the hygroscopic key and also on the storage conditions. So I think from personal point, half a year is a good point to start a validation and to give it by the own lab.
Okay, next question. Is the AGI test, absolute growth index of muscle and others, compatible with the requirements of ISO 11133 2014?
For this we have to explain that the absolute growth index is a streaking technique, as I remember well, by Miles and Misra. We have to say that in 11133 in the new standard for the quantitative testing, this is given as a citation in the bibliography, but it is not completely the same. We tried to simplify it a little bit that for quantified quality control, the surface technique can be used and not a special streaking technique.
Thank you. Next question. Home isolate are very important. What do you mean about this? Should we consider on the development of culture media or in QC?
Yeah, thank you very much to this question. Yes, home isolate or isolate from the food, from the water itself should be definitely included in the validation, in the pre-development phases of culture media, and I'm sure that most will be done. I know it from our own R&D. In the specification for the final quality control, we discussed this also in our ISO group, but then we decided it is also very important to have strains which are worldwide available, and for this and can be compared, the result can be compared then also worldwide, and for this reasons we then decided to have these strains from strain culture collections. But it is a sentence in the standard that preferable these strains will be selected and are selected from food and water matrices, where it is possible.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Next question. Since now the laboratory should be accredited under new ISO 11133,
that's not, thank you very much, it's not so easy to answer because the accreditation will be on methods normally. If you are an accredited lab according to ISO 17025, so this would include then the quality control of culture media preparation and quality control of culture media according ISO 11133. So normally, as far as I know, the lab is not itself accredited to this ISO, but if you are a manufacturer of culture media, maybe you can be then accredited your quality control lab as according to ISO 11133.
Exactly. So you have already answered a question that was also addressed. The question was, in particular, culture media production manufacturers should have an accredited lab to sell their products. So you already gave the answer.
Thank you very much.
So there are many, many more questions, but unfortunately we run out of time. So the last question. I would like to know if it is possible for you to provide us with either a certificate of attendance or participation that I have followed this webinar for ISO 11133.
Yes.
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 So the answer is yes, we can provide that. So unfortunately, as I said, we are running out of time. So it was really a great pleasure having you on board on our webinar today. And thank you very much for your very, very active participation and these many questions we have received. So the question and answer session is not over. We invite you to send further questions. If you are going to our website, and here if you're using the Ask the Expert button, Barbara will be very pleased and happy to answer any further questions, which we will send out by email. Also to those questions which we could not answer today. And also remember that you can listen again Barbara's whole presentation at any later time point. We have also put the whole presentation on demand on our website. So if you have time at a later time point, please visit our website and you can follow the webinar also maybe with your colleagues. These questions also were addressed. Also what we realized, questions came that not all figures and tables were easily to read. So if you're also going to our website, you will find the white paper as PDF, and there you can print out all the figures and tables which Barbara presented. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. And for your information, we plan further webinars about regulatory topics in microbiology next year, and of course, for sure, we look forward to have you with us then. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.